We're live, Brad, and I'm
We are
tweeting
live.
as we are live. We are live now. Send
Love it.
tweet.
Yeah. Great start to the show. Yeah.
Zooming
We are live.
start.
I
Zooming
thought you had
start.
something else for me. I was like, yeah, we are indeed live right now.
No, this is a I got a lot for you. I mean, it was a massive recruiting weekend for Indiana. We'll get into all that in just a bit. Phil Steele literally just arrived at your doorstep. We were glossing over that before we came on air.
Look at that. Aiden Fisher right on the cover here. Wow. Unbelievable.
It's beautiful. It really is beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
We
My
got some
first
Indiana.
cover with the Hoosier on it. First one, I believe. Maybe. There might maybe I have one with Penix on it. Potentially. Hold on.
Having trouble with the Facebook stream here. I just want to remove it. Whatever.
No, I don't have
We'll
a
see if that
Penix
comes
one, but I
back.
do have a Spencer Sanders cover. So there's that. There we go.
That's insane. That's actually
Oklahoma
insane.
State Spencer Sanders, not Ole Miss Spencer Sanders.
We got Indiana basketball news. We got things happening in the world of sports reporting. We have things happening with the House settlement. But again, it was a massive recruiting weekend for Indiana. I guess we'll start going reverse chronological order. Just today, literally 2.5 hours ago, Indiana secured the commitment of LaRon Dews, athlete, defensive back, wide receiver out of Cardinal Mooney by way of Hurricane, West Virginia. Super pumped about this addition. He was the fourth commit of this past week for the Hoosiers. They're building ridiculous momentum on the trail, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to be stopped. So did you have a chance to even check out much of like what LaRon's going to be?
Yeah, it looks like LaRon's going to be on the defensive side of the ball. He's listed as an athlete, but he could end up on the offensive side of the ball. But I believe just based on who's been recruiting him, it's going to be on the defensive side of the ball with Ola Adams being the one recruiting him. Coming from,
I guess I do want to say I guessed about Ola Adams doing the recruiting, by the way, just because I watched a bunch of LaRon Dews film and he was playing free safety. That's Ola Adams' room, so I'm assuming he was doing the recruiting. But there's also people who think that he profiles a little bit more as a corner, so who knows? That's Rod Ojong's room. But so I jumped the gun maybe potentially on giving credit. I don't know where the credit should go, but all those guys are awesome. So
when I think of LaRon Dews, I think of Jaja Boyd type athlete, can kind of do it all. If you remember, Jaja Boyd came in as an athlete as well. Obviously, was going to go on the defensive side of the ball no matter what. Around the same build, 5'9", 180, from Florida. We love that. Cardinal Mooney right in your old backyard, which is pretty sweet. And oh my God, you're getting tripped up the socks already. But but yeah, I mean, I see Jaja Boyd. I see yeah, I think Rover, Devon Boykin, who's going to be the starter at the Rover this year for Indiana. Kind of an undersized cornerback type with also, in the box skills. That is how I envision LaRon Dews. By the way, totally passes the name test. If you guys don't know about the name test, it's like a sick name, kind of going off vibes. Like usually those guys like LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, like cool names, those guys end up panning out. And LaRon Dews is just another one. LeBron Bond comes to mind when you think about the name test. But yeah, good to have it. One last thing I like about LaRon Dews: 0 stars on 24/7. Remember the last time that happened? Roe Hardy. There we go. So
anytime. I was gonna say
he had Oregon in his final 5. I don't think he's too under the radar. But,
that's what I'm saying. Like he was
that's a
starting
win.
Free safety for Cardinal Mooney. They were a very good team playing in Sarasota.
Yeah, beating out another elite Big Ten school for a recruit is just always going to be a huge win. So I mean, if Dan Lanning wanted him on his defense, I'm sure we want him on our defense too. So yeah, excited to see what LaRon's able to do. He could play corner, could play rover. A little undersized for a full-time safety role, but you never know. But yeah, I see him.
Well, he's also I was gonna say variously listed at like 5'9", 5'10", whatever. He kind of profiles a little bit like Louis Moore as well. And there was a Buffed and Prime breakdown of how good Louis Moore was at the back end of last year. But he's just a guy who people view as undersized, who's just back line of defense, like sure tackler and then all that stuff. So it's like, especially when this staff is beating the sites when it comes to these guys, like you just said, his final five included Indiana, it included Oregon, it included West Virginia, among others. Like when they're beating the sites, like I'm just completely bought in on the talent, and so I'm jacked up for that one for sure.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite commitment so far because of those 0 stars. Like one thing that's very common with Indiana recruiting since Cignetti's gone there is that they really look for football instincts. I'm going to go back to Ro Hardy for that. The kid just has a nose for the football. We'll see what LeRon Dewes ever. It's really hard to put that Ro Hardy pressure on LeRon Dewes, but
no.
big shoes to fill, different positions, but yeah, love getting some Florida. How many Florida commits do we have now?
Well, actually, this is a good piggyback because Dewes wasn't even the only Sarasota kid to commit to the Hoosiers in the past. Like since we last spoke, they also flipped Cavante Hugan. He was committed to Louisville. He took his official visit last week, decommitted from Louisville. Now he's a Hoosier. He is the higher rated, I guess you could say, because he is 4 stars on On3, pushing on the upper level, like the top of Indiana's class right now. He was just named, I think, like standout performer at one of the Florida State camps. Like he's a monster on the edge. He's from Booker High School. I don't honestly know if they play each other, but those high schools are like 15, 20 minutes from each other.
I'm sure they play each other if they're 15, 20 minutes away from each other, but you never know. There's plenty of big schools like that. I just can't imagine. I mean, LA could be like that, but can't imagine Tampa has that many high schools.
It's Sarasota, and Cardinal Mooney is a private school, Catholic private school, and Booker High School is a public school.
Okay, that's good insight. Yeah, Hugan, I heard he I definitely projects as an edge. Ideally, the stud as more of the undersized edge. I mean, we'll see how his development turns out, but definitely going to be a D end type player. Ideally, the stud. Very similar to a couple of guys that we brought in this past year. Think of Burris. Think of
it is well. I was gonna say it's funny you went Burris first because Burris is the other defensive lineman that was flipped from Louisville.
That is funny. I didn't do that on purpose, but let's pretend I did. But yeah, flipping a guy like that, literally decommits from Louisville within 24 hours. He's an Indiana Hoosier commit. And one little tidbit from his commitment that I heard is that he won defensive MVP. No, he won trenches MVP at a Florida State camp this year. So that's huge. So that's both O-line, D-line. He won the MVP for both sides of the ball in the trenches. He's a winner. And another theme of what you look for an Indiana commit, and he checks all the boxes. So yeah, 2 huge Florida commits, which I double checked. Those are only 2 Florida commits. We just got them. So yeah, well done.
It's funny too.
I want to give credit to you just having that Sarasota presence yourself for so long.
Yeah, 100%. Well, actually,
this is a long time coming.
It is funny, but I don't have a relationship at all with LeRon Dewes, and I didn't have any influence in any of this recruiting, but I am friends with his uncle.
Oh, fun.
Funny enough.
Yeah. Small world.
So yeah, I'm pumped up. Again, I had absolutely nothing to do with the recruitment, and I'm not involved at any level, but like, just cool stuff. You just meet people and you don't know who people are. And you talk about football. It's funny. We actually talked about Chris McCorkle. That's how we initially started talking. Like became like friends at work. Yeah.
He didn't end up going to.
No, so Chris McCorkle was a Cardinal Mooney kid that committed to Indiana, decommitted, ended up at Kansas. But that just kind of goes to show you how that our defensive back coaches have pull in that area. Like they're not just going into Florida blind. Like Cardinal Mooney's a place they've been able to have some success at, which is really cool because they're a great school.
Have you kissed and made up with the Red Sox front office like John's asking in the chat?
I'll save my Red Sox rant for the end of the podcast, but I promise you'll get one.
I'm just pissed he went to the Giants. That's my rival. They can't.
Not that I'm
worried about the Dodgers or anything. Anyway,
last note on LeRon Dewes before we hop into the other 2 commits, both 2 Indiana kids from this class.
We're on Cavante Hugan.
No, but I wanted to just I had another note. Byron Baldwin Jr. was in the official visit pictures, was pretty active. I don't know how active in the recruiting, but was pretty vocal, at least leading up to the commitment. It just kind of brought me back to an interview Byron Baldwin did when he first committed to Indiana, basically saying that he's going to do everything he can to help bring players in. And this is just another example of like doing things he didn't have to be doing. But that just shows you the type of players you have in your program. So shout out Byron Baldwin
It
Jr.
speaks volumes to the culture that they do truly care. It's not like they're there just to get their scholarship and play 4 years and potentially shoot it for the NFL. Like they're trying to win. You know, they're trying to have guys around them to allow them to win a championship. And obviously, if you go to Indiana at this point, you're bought into that vision of eventually winning a title. We talked about that 5-star from Texas that called Indiana title within the next 3 years. So, you know, just seeing that, you know, seeing stories like that, Byron Baldwin getting involved, because obviously he's a young freshman, might even redshirt this year. I doubt that, but, you know, he's going to be around the program for about, you know, 3 or 4 years. So he obviously wants, you know, I love seeing that leadership so early on from a freshman. I think is the biggest takeaway. He's clearly putting himself in that position to be, once he is a junior, senior, he's going to be one of the vocal leaders on the team. And you want that from your most talented player, because I've been on teams where the most talented player was not the vocal leader. I'm referring to an NFL champion himself, and wasn't definitely the best player on the team, but wasn't necessarily the best vocal leader. And maybe that's why we weren't able to beat St. John Bosco that year, despite all the talent we had. Who knows? But, you know, those things go a long way. Having your best players be your best leaders, you know, you hear it a lot, you know, from great coaches like Spoelstra and Popovich. I'm talking basketball right now, but you know, those concepts apply to all sports, right? And that's what you want.
Yep. Did you have a closing point on Hugan as well? Because that's another massive commit. The defensive side of the ball for this class is utterly ridiculous. The defensive line for this class is utterly ridiculous. I think 2 of the 4 highest rated guys in the class are both on the defensive line. The other 2 highest rated guys in the class are both defensive backs, like, and Henry Ollinger's up there too, linebacker. Like, this is like they're stacking the defensive side of the ball in a really meaningful way, and they're not forgetting about the offense. I actually sold it short. It's not 4 commits. It's actually 5 commits. Jerrion Campbell, running back, I believe out of Powder Springs, Georgia, committed to the Hoosiers. He had offers from Alabama, among others. Massive commitment. You watch his huddle and the way he's able to like bounce outside and the power in his lower half, and just you can see why Alabama wanted him. But a massive commitment out of the weekend. And offensive guard CJ, is it Skiffries or Sifries, and tight end Parker Elmore on the offensive side of the ball. Like, there's so much going on this weekend in terms of Indiana recruiting.
Yeah. I mean, 2 Indiana guys. One thing that's really been surprising is that as good of a recruiter Tom Allen was, feels like the stranglehold that Cignetti has on the state of Indiana, which, you know, we've talked about on the side, maybe isn't the most fruitful state for talent, but I mean, they're getting guys like CJ Skiffries, however you want to say it. We'll get the name right, from Center Grove, obviously a producer of talent. You know, we talk about the Taven Jackson, Trace Jackson Davis are the first that come to mind. You know, the Cherry brothers from Center Grove. So that paves the way for, you know, maybe Tyler Cherry's little brother might get a commitment. Maybe he doesn't have a real offer. We'll see. I'm not trying to insinuate about him right now. But, you know, 6'6", 325 in high school right now. Being that size, that young, he projects as a large guard, honestly. Just being able to move and get comfortable with that weight is going to be, you know, very important for him as he develops and things like that. So huge commitment. It feels like, yeah, it's a crazy stranglehold. I think that puts us at about, I'm trying to count live right now, like 5 or 6 Indiana commits from the state, which is unbelievable. You don't see that too often from an Indiana class.
Casimir
Even when
Hicks,
Tom Allen was there, it wasn't like, I think it's just because it's a strong Indiana class this year. So they're actually able to find really good players in their backyard, which is awesome, obviously.
Yeah, depending on which list you look at, they have like the 1, the 5, the 7, the 9. They also have the number 1 player in Wisconsin too. But yeah, back to this weekend. But yeah, I completely agree with you. Do you think? How did you pronounce it? Is it Sifries?
Skiffers.
Sifries?
Could be Skiffers.
Skiffries?
Could be
We're gonna have to
Skiffers.
get a
Could
we're
be
gonna have to get a
Cyphers.
pronunciation.
Cyfreeze, Skyfreeze. It's probably Skiffers. If I had to guess, if I had to put money on it, I'd go Skiffers.
I like looking at offensive linemen and going like, that's a Bob Bostad guy. And I know like all the guys that he recruits are going to be Bob Bostad guys. So it's like, it's almost like a catch
I
22.
would imagine. But he is the O-line coach. So
yeah,
it's kind of a nothing statement. But what do we mean by Bostad guys? Guys that love driving dudes into the pavement. That's what Bob Bostad guy is. A guy that likes to finish
versatile
his blocks in high school.
Big and versatile.
Doesn't have any remorse because, as a D1 O lineman, typically you're going up against a guy where you have probably 50 pounds on at least. And they're just continuing to drive him in with no regard for human life, zero remorse. You just love to see that. You don't want Bob Bostad does not recruit gentle giants. Let's just put it that way. No,
he does not. And then Parker Elmore, the tight end. He's another guy. I was going to just kind of set you up. Kind of interesting that he transferred high schools because of the way the transfer rules shook out or whatever his particular situation was. He wasn't able to play football, so he hasn't played football for a year. Back when he was playing football, he played quarterback. Indiana's recruiting him as a tight end. This is kind of another one of those things where, like, when the staff is early on somebody and like another kid who on most major sites doesn't even have a ranking, I'm all in, full blown all in.
Love it. Definitely an under the radar guy. Doesn't have a ton of his offer sheet, doesn't blow you away, but despite that, still has a very good rating on 24/7 at least. Obviously, the stars really don't matter, but like you said, the fact that he has that amount of buzz going into his senior year, where he didn't play his junior year, which is like a pivotal year for recruiting, and he didn't even play, and the fact that he was able to even get entertained by Indiana. Clearly, we were lucky that he was in our own backyard. We were able to find him. Columbus, very good athletes come out of there, from what I've heard. So, yeah, super pumped for him. 2 tight ends in this class, which is, makes a lot of sense considering the lack of depth with West leaving. We look at that.
Sam West, not CJ West.
Yeah. With Sam West leaving, it comes down to Stays, Nowakowski, and Bamba, who are likely all gone next year. And that leaves us with Thierry and
Barker, right?
Barker. Yeah. And that's it. I think Bamba might have one more year, but let's shoot it straight here. Bamba's not going to be the starting tight end next year. So they might bring in a transfer and then go with those 4 young guys in the back end with Bamba, who's a very good blocker, but cannot be your main pass catching option at that position. He's just not bendy, athletic enough to get really enough yards after catch. He's also, he's not the best receiver. So, I love their approach, bringing in 2 6'5" tight ends. We're not going, the Nowakowski route where it's more of an H-back. These are true Ys for the football nerds out there. Ys are tight ends. H's are, Stays is your Y. Nowakowski is your F, type H-back type role in the offense. So, awesome to see in terms of how they continue to construct the roster, getting ahead of things, and getting the guys they want, because this is the summer. It's not like they're scrambling for commits right now, and they're just filling up the class because these guys are passing the tests for them. So, it's a team effort. Iron sharpens iron. So, building it this way, I think is just the right way to go. I'm gonna trust the process with anything roster construction, recruiting. That Cignetti does. So.
Did you
the momentum is palpable. It's insane.
Did you get a chance to look into Jerrion Campbell?
I've not watched him. The one thing that stood out to me is that Georgia, McEachern, that's a big time high school. A lot of talent. I recognized it, so it's having really never really been to Georgia. So McEachern, I love it. I'm gonna look at his commitment list real quick. Hold on.
I was gonna say, so
Yeah. What stood out about Jerrion Chandler for you?
Well, first of all, his offer list. Second of all, you then turn on the huddle and his ability to kind of break through tackles. But it was more so kind of how it sets
Oh,
up
he's a Bama
Indiana's.
offer. Okay, there you
Yeah,
go.
it's more so how it sets up their room. If you look at, I think it was Bite Size Bison tweeted this out, but their underclass RB room is now Kobe Martin, Sean Quono, and Jerrion Campbell. It's a nice
And
set of
with
backs they
Lee
have
Beebe
coming in,
likely going to be
and
the one
BB
next
is
year.
coming back.
With Beebe, and they're probably going to bring in another transfer running back to fight for that starting spot and fight for reps. I mean, that's going to be another killer room next year. Like, it's like you don't even. It's like, why do we even have the podcast? It's like we just know it's always going to be good, right? Like, there's nothing
Coach
to
Juice,
critique.
Coach Juice, and
here.
Coach John Miller are just doing their things.
Yeah, there's no worries here, from me at least, from a roster construction standpoint. So, love what we're doing. Huge weekend. So you told me 4. We just listed 5 commits.
Correct. It was 5. I also tweeted 4.
Wow.
It's 5. It was 5.
Yeah, and somehow we dropped in the rankings, but who cares?
No, I think we went. I actually think we went up, but I'm not entirely sure. It's I think the class is at 18 now. The and John shouting out Coach Leeds as an offensive line recruiter. Shout out Coach Leeds. It really is kind of the only real hole in this class is the quarterback position, and that kind of leads us to a couple of different things that happened this week. There was no news on the Luke Fahey front. Obviously, he's got his Ohio State visit leading up. There was some news in terms of quarterbacks Indiana could potentially be looking at. I believe Adam Gorney tweeted that it was official that Cash Herrera is going to be taking an Indiana visit. He was a longtime Iowa commit, recently decommitted. I think he had offers from like Cal and maybe Arizona or something like that. If you look at 24/7's quarterback rankings, he's, I think, literally one behind Luke Fahey. If you look at on threes, there's a huge gap. So literally, who knows? I'm going to trust Kurt Cignetti when he's evaluating quarterbacks. But it is interesting to note that Ohio State doesn't have a quarterback in the class of 26 either. So I don't think, while I'm not going to, like, again, we're going to talk about like strict recruiting pitch, like I'm going to take Kurt Cignetti every time. But then if you look at the NIL and the amount of money that Ohio State's able to put behind football, where Sig has been very open about the fact that Indiana's not on that level spend wise. If it really just comes down to whose pot is bigger, then I don't think it's an accident that Cash Herrera scheduled an official visit.
I'm trying to find Cash Herrera. It doesn't look like he has an offer from Indiana yet, but that's great that he's visiting, because obviously you can, if you're going to go on a visit like that, you can imagine that he's probably at the visit. 6'3", 200 pounds. You're, as standard quarterback build as you can get there, really. 6'3", 210. California, gotta love that, just in terms of their ability to train more often than, other areas and things like that. And just dealing with, the DB talent in the area, which is, I would say, the best in the country, which is kind of why quarterbacks from California end up being so good, because they're seeing really good talent basically from 6th grade on. So Cash Herrera, once again, another guy passes the name test. Unbelievable. Cash Herrera. But yeah, I'm not going to talk too much about a guy that doesn't have an offer, hasn't committed yet, but excited to eventually we will have a quarterback commitment, as it is really important. It does feel like we're behind, and that's why we're not seeing any receiver commitments quite yet from this in this class.
Yeah, that's the other thing is Jaquaden Guilford, who is, I believe he's Fort Wayne, Indiana. He set a commitment date, June 27th. His top 4 is Indiana, Michigan, Ohio State, and Ole Miss. He was at Ohio State today with a bunch of other 5 and 4 stars working out with Brian Hartline. So again, it's another guy who Ohio State's in on, Indiana's in on. We're going to get probably decisions from him and Fahey around the same time. It would be kind of funny if they were both at Ohio State. I don't know if Guilford's going. I don't know where he's going this weekend. I have no idea. But I'm saying if he happens to be at Ohio State and those two end up talking and going to Indiana, that would be hilarious. But Um, we'll see. We'll see where Indiana stands with those guys. Um, but yeah, but other than that, a lot of positive momentum on the trail, and there's these guys are building a lot of momentum that they're not just like letting go to the wayside. They're actually just stacking and stacking and stacking. Like the fact that it was a massive weekend 2 weekends ago, and then this week they had 5 commits. It was like it felt like somebody was committed every day. It's actually insane. I think somebody has commit every day.
Pretty awesome that they're able to take in guys at that rate. You don't see it too often. And yeah, I'm just glad they're ahead of the game as opposed to last year where around this time they probably had like around 5, 6 commits, if that, maybe 0. I don't know how good my memory
I'm trying to
is,
think. Like I think Byron Baldwin initially committed around like June or something like that.
Oh, okay. So maybe they were doing good stuff.
But they weren't. I mean, the class wasn't at 18.
Yeah. I mean, it's great to see all these guys and develop, but like we just watched Ohio State win with quarterback and wide receiver play, and we have none of that coming in freshman wise. Obviously, we have the portal.
No,
always going to be
that's
there.
That's not true.
What?
That's not true. We have Cortez Rupert coming in the wide receiver room.
Good call out. Good call out.
Also, multiple tight ends. Jerryon Campbell coming in as a running back playmaker. And
I don't count running backs, but yeah.
If you look at the underclass talent on like playmakers, Davion Chandler, LeBron Bond, Miles Kendrick, all freshmen. Charlie Becker, sophomore.
Super young.
Tyler Morris will be back next year.
Tyler Morris will be back next year. So not too much to panic about in terms of just win now, but it would be nice to, bring in a quarterback and 2 other wide receivers in this class. It would be nice.
Yeah. Like there was, I know that they were on Travis Johnson, 4-star wide receiver. He picked up a couple different crystal balls to Michigan. I think his commitment date might have been today. I'm not even sure, but I kind of like stopped paying attention because it's like you stack that many crystal balls, like it kind of is what it is. So it's very obvious they're not stopping. The number Sig talked about at that press conference was 20. I feel like that's a give or take. I'm not going to hold him to that. I'd be stunned if they were done at 18. I wouldn't be surprised if they went to 24 or if it was 19 though. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to hold them clear to 20, but definitely something to keep an eye on as the number of in this class does go up, and we know they're going to add a quarterback. At least.
Typically, the standard number is 25. I want to make that super clear. That's the standard number in recruiting. You can go above or under. I don't know if these rules are still the same. I haven't read up on them since then, but it basically matters.
I'm assuming the recruiting rules probably changed.
So your early enrollees actually count toward your previous class numbers. And then the ones that enroll in the fall go toward that year's numbers. So then as many as you have left out of the 25, like let's say, I don't know, this year it feels like about 9 are didn't go to spring and are coming back next year. So in theory, they can bring in 16 guys early to spring next year. If that makes sense. Did I do a good job explaining that?
I think I'm still lost to be honest.
So give me an example. Okay. Davion Chandler enrolls in the fall. That counts as 2025. The guys that came in early, they actually count toward the previous year's numbers because they came in early during that cycle. So with whatever the number is for the amount of guys that they're bringing in into the fall, the freshman guys that didn't play in the spring, weren't enrolled yet, that number subtracted from 25 is the number of people that they can bring in early from this class. And that translates year over year over year. And so in that sense, you can go over the number, the 25 number, if you want to. I don't know if these are still the rules, to be honest, but that's how it used to be.
I'll take your word.
The fact that I know that is concerning.
It is concerning. Well, it's because you've gotten 14 years of Phil Steele, Brad.
And also, I was, back in the Jim Mora days, I mean, they were killing it on the trail. So I was all over what they were doing. The Roquan Smith commitment Do you remember that on signing day?
No.
Roquan Smith on signing day put up UCLA football gloves, 4s up, committed to UCLA. Within 24 hours, the Atlanta Falcons, Georgia's team, by the way, he's from Georgia. He picked UCLA over Georgia. Within 24 hours, the Atlanta Falcons hire UCLA DC Jeff Ulbrich, now the DC at the Jets. Hire him within 24 hours. 24
I don't
hours
think
after
he's
that,
still the DC.
Roquan Smith still hasn't signed, never signed the papers. Decommits from UCLA, goes to Georgia. Obviously, the rest is history. I know for a fact there was collusion there. I'm not over it, but like I said, that's how in depth I followed recruiting way back in the day.
You're saying the Atlanta Falcons hired Jeff Ulbrich so
to
that
collude with the Georgia Bulldogs, yeah, because they're both from Georgia.
God, I don't know if I can co-sign that, but I'll put win behind it.
There's win behind it for sure. Is it real? I don't know, but
that's crazy.
Come on. Of all the 32 NFL teams that wanted to hire Jeff Ulbrich, it's the Atlanta Falcons. Come on. Come on. Seriously? Really?
I got some smoke for you, Brad. I got some.
Yeah.
We can go with the Indiana football.
Pac-12 memory of the week, by the way. Roquan Smith committing to UCLA.
I actually, it was funny. My dad told me to bring back the Pac-12 memory of the week this week. He should bring it back because he missed it.
Well, I did. It's Roquan Smith committing to UCLA.
There's a happy Father's Day to all
the signed the papers. Went to Georgia.
Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
Yeah.
That there's a Father's Day present. Indiana had I think they had a home and home scheduled with Virginia starting in 2027. That's no longer on the table. I don't know whose side that came from, whether that was Virginia or Indiana, but this one's going to piss a bunch of people off. Indiana added powerhouse Kennesaw State to the 2027 non-con schedule.
They're a rising power in college football. They just fired their coach. By year 3, I mean, he should have them in a playoff contending roster.
Do I care? No. Is it going to help quell the noise of
we have to play in the Big Ten
schedule? No. Despite
what Diego Pavia says, we have to play in the Big Ten 9-game schedule every week, no weeks off.
Let's go to Pavia next, Brad. I'm glad you said that because Diego Pavia was on Bussin' with the Boys. He said a lot of different things during that podcast, a lot of which were very funny. The funniest thing was a shot at the Big Ten, but it wasn't even really a shot at the Big Ten. It was a shot at Purdue. It was a shot. I mean, but it was coming from Diego Pavia. So it's like he really was just making fun of Purdue and Nebraska. No, it was definitely a shot at the Big Ten, but I thought it was hilarious. And I noted in my comment back to it that the two schools that he chose to single out, Nebraska and Purdue, got beat by Indiana by a combined 115-7.
Well, it's almost like that's funny coincidence. It's almost like he's taking a shot at Indiana.
It's almost like that came from the quarterback who started for a team that lost to Georgia State.
So funny. It's just the delusion, man. It's crazy. You're telling me Mississippi State is not a bye, how you would consider like Purdue a bye week or like Northwestern a bye week. You're not telling me like Mississippi State, Vanderbilt on a given year, Arkansas recently aren't just like absolute pushovers of team. I mean, Florida like 4 years ago was that. I mean, you have iterations of these teams. Like, yeah, generally Florida is good, but like on a given year, they could be bad. I've seen bad Florida. And it's like when it's never going to end because they're so delusional down there in the South, and especially when it comes to their football, and they just think they're the best, and the Big Ten's the worst. So we just got to continue stacking national titles on them. That's what we got to do, and that's why I root for when it comes to December, January. I'm rooting for the Big Ten because I'm sick of this SEC narrative. It's getting out of hand.
The thing that was so funny about the Pavia comments, or that he's talking like he has an Ohio State team behind him. Like he's like, Vanderbilt is this, and we're going to run Nashville and all this stuff. And then the follow-up question was, do you believe you're saying Vanderbilt has like top player NIL money. And his quote was, no, but we'll get there. So he doesn't even have the financial backing for the things that he's saying that they're going to be like. He's like trying to speak all of this into existence, and good on him. But I got the thing that we love about Curt Cignetti is that he doesn't just talk. He says things that he's confident he can back up. And it feels like Pavia just wrote a lot of checks that I'm not sure Vanderbilt's going to be able to cash for him this year.
Poor whoever's the chancellor or the AD at Vanderbilt is just shaking his head.
Like, we're not spending that much. What are you talking about? Like, we're going to outspend Tennessee, Knoxville? Yeah. You're going to lower the education or the academic standards to get into Vanderbilt? Is that just going to change? No. Good luck to him. Definitely good luck to him. The Big Ten.
John said he went on the Voice of Alabama and told them that Indiana will win a natty before the SEC.
Shout out to
yes, John. Let's go.
I love it, John.
Bring me that energy.
I believe that is hosted by Jackson Johnson,
our boy. Shout out Jackson Johnson, good guy.
And if I'm not mistaken, I actually don't.
There's no way Jackson Johnson shipped that message. There's no way. Talk about delusional. Good guy. Delusional SEC head. He just is. He's just one of those guys.
The Voice of College Football has great shows, though. It's fun. It was funny when not to go back to Cash Herrera, but when the Cash Herrera news broke, I checked out the Iowa guys and saw what they had to say about a quarterback leaving the class. And it's kind of funny that, like, okay, it looks like Ohio State's going to take Indiana's like number one quarterback target. So then, well, this is technically number two, I guess. And so Indiana's just going to go and take the guy from Iowa. I think that's pretty funny.
Yeah. I don't know if I want the guy from Iowa, though, you know?
La Jolla, listen, I'll take La
Jolla, California, though. I'll take that.
I trust the staff.
Blake Barnett, Julian Sayin from around that area. Just to name a few, top guys.
One of the other things that Voice of College Football was doing, you may have seen it on this channel. Shout out to Chris. He's been the one who's been running all the simulations. He has Voice of College Football 365. Go check him out. But he's been running NCAA 14 simulations with the 2025 rosters. I've seen the IU versus Illinois. I've seen IU versus Iowa. Indiana won both those games by multiple scores. No surprises there. It's just another cool thing to pass the time as you're itching for football.
Yeah, that's good.
I can't lie. I was sitting there watching. Like, I'm sitting there like
against Oregon, because that's the game I'm focused on. Like, I think
I know. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm sure it's going to come to the channel. But it's funny when I texted him because I was like good stuff with that. Like, love seeing Indiana win. And he's like, I don't want to hear it when they don't win. And I was like, well, then I'm just not going to push those videos. You won't hear those from me.
We don't need a video game to know that Indiana is going to, I don't know. Iowa, I could see us going in there and winning by 30. Illinois at home, I could actually see that being kind of a dogfight. I do think Illinois is going to be good. Maybe not top 10 good, like people are saying.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see. That's a game they have to win to be considered that top 10 team. They're trying to take our spot. Are we just going to let them do that in our place? No, that's what Sig. Did I just say the Sig pregame speech right now in June? They're coming into our place and trying to take our spot in the Big Ten in terms of our bid in the college football playoff. Are you guys going to let that fucking happen? No. And then Mikhail Kamara barges through a wall, and the rest of the team just follows through whatever holes he created as he gets to the stadium. They got to replace that.
It almost seems unfair that they get to train with Derek Owings every day.
I want to train with Derek Owings. I'm getting ripped these days. I feel like I can hang with the boys. Give me, come on,
get us in that weight room. There was Big Ten Huddle ranked the wide receivers in the Big Ten. I don't have the list in front of me. But Surratt was at number 3. Surratt was at number 3 behind both Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. Omar Cooper was also on the list, but I think Indiana Edits was the one who I saw this from, noted that McCulley was like 10 slots higher than Omar Cooper, which is insane because, Omar Cooper was so good at his job that he literally took Donovan McCulley's job.
That's insane. They have Donovan McCulley ranked on this list, period. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's another part of the Michigan delusion where it's like, yeah, he's going to be the number one receiver on your team next year. Like, it's like, I don't want to put kids down or speak negatively, but that's a big ask for somebody who's like needs a lot of development as a receiver. And maybe they've seen that refinement and development over the last however long it's been since he's officially been with the program.
I can tell you Big Ten Huddle has not seen that refinement. I almost guarantee you that the guys who made the list did not see it. They're just going off names.
But Surratt,
they see 6'5", they see 210, they see former four-star quarterback, they see led Indiana in receiving on a 2-win team. Above Omar Cooper is just insane. Insanity. It's like you can't even put him over EJ Williams. they literally picked EJ Williams over Donovan McCulley. Whether or not that was like just based on mutual interest, who knows? Like I guess I can't really use that as a means to say EJ Williams is better than Donovan McCulley, just from like a logic standpoint. Can't really use that. The Omar Cooper thing
is crazy. He might be the most.
He's a top 10 receiver in the Big. I'm looking at this list right now. Who's he better than? Brandon Innes, I think, is good. I think Dane Key, need to see more. DeCorian Moore, that freshman coming into Oregon, let me tell you, he's one of them ones. He is one of them ones. Watch out for DeCorian
Freaky
Moore.
freak.
Freaky freak.
Yeah, we're going to have to see him.
I watch him. It's just like Jamar Chase. That's what I see. I don't know what his build is, but I just see Jamar Chase when I watch him. I don't think he's as big. I don't think he is as big either, which is concerning, but like he moves like him is kind of what I'm saying, right? Octavian Smith, Trevor Pena. I mean, yeah, I don't see how.
Shout out to Ocean Township's own Trevor Pena.
I don't know how Omar Cooper is not consensus number 11.
No, I'm with you, and I think it's funny because Surratt.
You could argue him in that field, like in this list. The top 10 is all the same. It's all got Innes. It's got DeCorian Moore, Mekhi Lemon. I think the Mekhi Lemon hype is a little too much, to be honest. I love Jacoby Lane. I think Jacoby Lane's an absolute dog. He's going to play on Sundays. It's going to be really good. But like, can you convince me Carnell Tate's better than Surratt? Can you convince me that Trevor Pena is better than Omar Cooper? Can you convince me?
Listen,
I don't know.
I'm like,
it's definitely not a 10 slot difference.
No, it's
within
not.
The conference.
I might. You're gonna.
I'm good. I'm done. I'm done with my. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna say, people talk about Elijah Surratt as this underrated receiver, and to an extent, he is. But he's carrying a top 5 PFF grade in terms of returning receivers. Like Omar Cooper is so slept on. To like, I'm a big fan of Trevor Pena, Ocean Township's own Trevor Pena, like same high school graduated from. Like he's like, if you're you can't tell me Omar Cooper is at least not on his level. Like that's insane. You're not watching receivers.
I think Omar Cooper, besides Jeremiah Smith, is the best 50-50 ball guy on this list. Jacoby Lane's right there though. I mean, he's like right there with Jacoby.
But you're talking top 3 in the you're talking top 3, top 5 in the conference in terms of 50-50 balls.
Yeah. And then we know he got faster this offseason because that was his main focus, was the separation, right? Because why do a 50-50 ball when you catch a wide open pass, you know?
Well, he's also put on
from Omar, and he's just being so slept on. And it's the brand brain, guys. Like we're talking, this is a playoff team. The 2 returning receivers are back. How do you just not just like blindly put Omar Cooper in the top 10? I don't understand. I don't understand how you don't do that. Like, all of a sudden USC has 2 top 5 receivers in the Big Ten. Like, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. Miller Moss wouldn't have needed to got benched if he had 2 top 5 Big Ten receivers on his roster. Wouldn't have gotten benched. Unless I'm low on Miller Moss, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like,
yeah. I don't know. You could argue like Kyle
You would
McCord
think
had
Jane Mayava doesn't throw 2 pick sixes in the last 2 minutes against Notre Dame. You would think Mekhi Lemon or Jacoby Lane can get open if they're top, 5 receivers in the Big Ten. You would think.
I don't know. They put up a lot of points in that game. I don't know. Listen, the point is Omar Cooper slept on. That's the point.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Yeah, I got a little heated by that because Coop's my guy. Coop's gonna have a big year this year. We might have 2,000-yard receivers this year. Yeah, and EJ gives us another 500. Ooh, that'd be fun.
The college football oversight committee met, I think yesterday, something like that, about a bunch of different things, including single transfer portal window. Talks of that are still ongoing. They're still going to have conversations, so we're not going to get a resolution for that anytime soon.
That's a good idea, to be honest.
I don't know if it is
I think
either.
it's good for the student athlete. I get it from a coaching perspective, like bring them into spring and for them to just leave, because it's the portal after spring that they're pissed about, right? But it's like it's spring, like there's so much time between spring and fall ball that it's like, yeah, I think as a coach you can kind of figure it out, like you have options. I think it's good. I think it's, as a pro athlete guy, like I think it's good that we have the 2 windows. I can see how it's frustrating from a coaching perspective, but I think it's good for the athlete to have it. And I think if they're even, unless there's no doubt, like they just need to keep it, right? Like I think that's where I stand on it. If I was in the room, right?
Yeah,
it's good.
Hard to argue with that.
Sport too, right? Like it's going to even the playing. It's going to, like, what the portal has done, created more parity within the sport. The second windows are going to do the same thing, right? It's not like the spring portal window is like absolutely crazy. I don't think a single guy who left in the spring portal from Indiana West. That's it. Maybe a couple other guys.
Jamari Farmer.
Okay, but they had like a turnover of about. Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Jamari Farmer transferred. Damn, I really got.
I think he entered the portal.
Notepad with the depth chart, but I'm waiting till fall because there might be things that change between now and then. But yeah. No, John, we covered LaRon Dews. We were pretty high.
Shout out to LaRon.
Shout out LaRon Dews. Passes the name test. 0-star on 24/7. Very similar to Roe Hardy. See him as a rover. Potentially, I do at least. He might end up at corner, D'Angelo Pons type, but I see him at rover.
Yeah, huge fans. Like it's the momentum the coaching staff keeps building is ridiculous. But it'd be repeating what we said the first.
Like I said, the second portal window. I don't see the second portal window as that big of a deal. Like what? Indiana had a turnover about like 4 guys back and forth. Like 4 guys left, 4 guys came in. Like in the grand scheme of things, it's not like it's the Wild Wild West post spring. Yeah. I don't think guys necessarily want to transfer after spring with the team. They don't want to come into a fall camp where they're already playing catch up. Right? Like that's not typically what you want to do. So it's like I don't see the issue. Like if they really feel the need to go in the portal, like we should just let them, because it's not, you don't even really want to do it anyways. But if you feel like you have to, you have to. So to like close that off from the student athlete, I think is just super unfair.
I agree. I'm with you. And then kind of the last bigger picture thing before I want to zero back in on college football, the House settlement, the one that Judge Wilkin just approved, that we talked about, lays the groundwork for whatever we're going to see in college sports moving forward, is already being challenged on the grounds of Title IX. In terms of like back pays being held up, rev share is going to move forward, but we're already seeing lawsuits. So it's like the litigation and things like that just getting started.
This is in regards to the new ruling, right?
Yep.
Hasn't affected Indiana yet, right?
No, it has not.
So as long as we're good, like I said, I'm pretty sure we're the gold standard. Like we got the Kelly guys on it, right? We probably got some Get some group projects going in the Kelly School of Business. Get them to figure this money allocation stuff out. We'll get there. Like, we'll be so fine. Not even worried about it. And obviously, everyone should know I'm a big advocate of just paying money under the table. But we'll see how much we can get away with that.
And then somebody last week put out like it was a question. It was like comparing the position groups between Indiana and Illinois. Who stacks? Like how do they stack up? And I don't think it's unbiased to say Indiana sweeps the position group battle. I really don't.
Okay, let's call Mendoza and Altmaier a toss-up. Let's just go through it. Now that I have my Phil Steele book, let's run through it. Yeah? I don't win. Let's flip the page. By the way, Phil Steele has Illinois and Indiana basically tied, but technically does have Illinois ahead of Indiana, but has Indiana ahead of USC. Take that for what you will. There's a lot of USC hype coming into this year. And so it goes, to preface this, Phil Steele has Penn State 1, Ohio State 2, Oregon 3, Michigan 4, and then tied for 5th, 4-way tie, in order, Illinois, Indiana, USC, Nebraska. Definitely got paid for that one, for sure. Anyways. So, like, you look at, what's great about Illinois is that they do have 19 returning starters coming back. That's a big part of the hype. But, I mean, if you include transfers, right, Indiana's at 16, and they went to the playoff last year. Right? Okay, so let's break it down. Let's call quarterback a toss-up just because, Altmaier, we've seen him. Ideally, you want Altmaier production from Mendoza. We think it'll surpass Altmaier in terms of production, but remains to be seen. So we'll just call that one a toss-up. Sure. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Their projected starter is Caden Fegan and Aiden Laherty. They combined for about 800 yards last year. That is less than Roman Hemby had last year. And behind Roman Hemby is Lee Beebe and Kalon Black. I'm going to give running back to Indiana. Just unbiased there. Receiver, okay. I'm not even going to entertain that. Omar Cooper and Surratt are the leading receivers on our playoff team. Illinois lost Pat Bryant to the NFL last year. They do not return him. I'm giving the edge to Indiana. Even if, I guess we can go receivers, Tanner Arkin. Tanner Arkin is good. I'm actually pretty high on him, but his production's not crazy. So in terms of just receivers overall, I'm taking Indiana. O-line, that's where it can get. I think Illinois is a really solid O-line. We're going to go unbiased. Could lean Illinois here. But like toss-up, right? In the same sense where I gave the toss-up to Illinois for the quarterback, I'm going to give us the toss-up here too, because you could argue Indiana's could be better. Because they were nominated for the Illinois might have been nominated for the what's the big award for the group O-line award?
I forget. I think it did not. Iowa was a semifinalist for it last year though, and people were like not very impressed by their offensive line.
True. And then we'll just go D-line, linebacker, DB. How many All-Americans does Illinois have coming back in either of those rooms? Any of them. Yeah, I'm gonna give so quarterback. Let's break it down. So quarterback, O-line are toss-ups. Running back, clear Indiana. Wide receivers, clear Indiana. D-line, linebacker, DBs, Indiana. Special teams, I'm taking McCarthy and Radicic too. I'm taking the Australian and the Croatian. I'm taking them as well. So, yeah, whoever is, this is not even a fun exercise, to be honest.
What about tight end?
I mean, like I said, I like Tanner Arkin. I like him. Only had 111 yards last year. I don't know. We'll see. He probably breaks out this year. That one I'm going to call a toss-up too, because I think Holden Stays is really talented as well. Probably more talented than him, but I think Arkin just probably has a little more experience in the system. So he has his role figured out a little bit more. So I don't know. I grouped that in with the receivers and said Indiana.
Yeah, pass catchers we can call them. Yeah, it's
Oh, he
listen,
was. That's important because I remember seeing Arkin earlier in the year, and I thought he was really good. So I guess maybe if we were the single out tight end, sure. I don't think that's a smart way of like. I don't think that's okay. Yeah, okay. Illinois has the edge of tight end. So what? Like that's kind of like my thought on evaluating who has the better tight end room. Like that's why I want to group it with receivers because it's like I don't know. It's really not that big of a deal. Like what is having Rob Gronkowski if you have a bunch of eighth graders around him? You know, like what's the purpose of having a really good tight end?
Listen, I mean we do joke and we do like to talk, but at the same time, like
that was me being unbiased.
No, but I'm saying like the idea isn't to put Illinois down. The idea is to just say like this Indiana football team is not being viewed in the way it should be viewed, and that's as a very good football team that's going to be very good again this year.
Yeah,
and it's like I think it's funny actually. Somebody responded to the tweet I put out. Actually, I want to see exactly what they said. It was Today we pay our LeBron dues. Tomorrow we get Cash Herrera.
Money's calling. Pick up the phone.
So that's good stuff. That is good stuff. I wanted to leave football with this, Brad. Josh Pate tweeted this out. He said, the biggest question facing college football in 2025 is blank.
Say it again. The biggest issue?
The biggest question facing college football in 2025
like
is
the
blank.
sport as a whole or just like this upcoming season?
That's the question.
The biggest question. The biggest question facing college football right now is
right?
Tough. I feel like I have all my answers at all times, so it's really tough for me to find questions.
I have an answer while you think. It's the biggest question is I was gonna say, like, how you allocate and regulate rev share and if you're gonna put a roster cap on or not. Because the longer we go without knowing the rules, the worse it's gonna get. So if you're gonna make it the Wild West, at least tell everybody that's the case so you can prepare for it. And if you're gonna put a bunch of rules on, then let's get those rules in place so we can start abiding by them and moving forward. Because like when you can pay high school recruits $25,000 a month to stay committed or to commit to your school, like I feel like we're starting to lose the plot a little bit. Not that I don't want these kids to get paid, like I do, and they should be getting paid, but it's like, God, like I don't know if I'm pretty confident saying not everybody's playing by the same rules right now, and I don't think that's the fault of the people doing it. I think it's that there's no rules.
So if I were to go just this season, I would think my biggest question is like, is USC actually back? If I was talking about like the season in general. If I'm going to talk about the sport overall, like what's the biggest question mark facing college football right now? It would be tournament expansion and conference alignment. What is that going to look like moving forward? Will we be expanding to 14? I think 12 is perfect. I like the format. I like 4 buys. 14 could make sense because then it's like a Big Ten champ, SEC champ get buys, and then everyone else kind of has to play it out, which I could like. If we move to 16, that's just like, what's even the point of winning your conference your conference title at that point? That just defeats the whole purpose of like winning your conference. Doesn't even matter, which ties into my whole conference alignment thing. Like, if we're going to move to 16, let's get rid of conferences. First off, make it a,
Super League,
Power 4, Power 5, whatever. Those are the questions that I'm facing in terms of like, what is my Phil Steele book that is organized by conferences my entire life? What is that going to look like moving forward? Are we going to continue conferences? I think it's a beautiful thing about the sport. I actually think we're in a really good spot conference wise. I like kind of the Power 2, SEC, Big Ten, just 2 super conferences, and then followed up by, a really strong Big 12 and a really strong ACC. Are they elite as top to bottom as SEC and Big Ten? No, but are they shitty conferences? No, they're good, competitive, high level college football conferences, right? And the Pac-12 is trying to makeshift a conference right now with like Texas State and Boise State and Oregon State, and we'll see what happens there. But like
all the
with
states,
all the conference, Fresno State and Ferris
Colorado State.
We're Sacramento State might weasel their way in there the way they're spending money right now, which is crazy. Cal State,
Pac-12 was like, no, guys, it's the Power 5. It's like, no, it's not.
And Texas State's like, here I am. Hey,
woo-hoo. State, yeah, Power 5. Yeah.
Shout out JG Kinney, though. Shout out JG Kinney, all-time leading receiver at Tulsa, head coach over at Texas State. He's killing it over there. He's going to be leveling up real soon. So I don't know if that Texas State move is the best idea necessarily, unless they're willing to put in the money. But yeah, we have 4 really strong conferences, and I do like where the sport's at right now. Like I would love to just like hit pause right now, because I like, as a West Coast guy going to a Big Ten school, like obviously I'm biased here, but love that the 4 best West Coast schools got into the Big Ten. Like a lot of people hated it. I liked it. Makes it coast to coast. I think it's beautiful, and kind of, it sets them up in a position where they could overtake the SEC just with that national reach that they have. Obviously the South is the South, and the SEC should dominate that, but like Indiana just got 2 Florida commits. I know UCLA just got 2 Florida O-line commits, 4 stars. So it's like, the Big Ten can always attack the South. I don't know how well the SEC can attack the rest of the country. I mean, they usually do to a point, right? When they're like 4 or 5.
I don't know. I mean, the guy who just committed to Alabama is from, I think, like Nebraska.
Yeah, I guess they do all right.
It's like,
I guess they do all right. So I guess it's fine. Like I if I could just press pause right now in terms
I'm
of
with you.
How college football could look like for the future, like I would do it this way, where there's you don't get the 4 conference champ auto qualifiers, just the top 4 seeds get auto bid.
Can we just stop with the moving parts? Like I'm just so tired of the structure of the
let's stop changing the format every 2 years. How about that?
Like, can we just leave it and let it run? Like, oh my God, Alabama had a shitty team and got left out. Like, dog, there's another year. Like we play this year now too. Like, but they're that worried that like things have gone so far in the other direction that if they don't get the arbitrary number of teams they need, then they're just going to get pushed out. Where it's like, I don't understand where the lack of confidence comes from, but I don't know. I digress. I want to jump into the chat here real quick, Brad. Read a couple. Get to a couple questions.
Wrap up football.
Yeah. Guy Herring says Florida State bad as they would beat Vanderbilt or bottom feeder Big Ten team.
Agreed. Like I think he makes a really good point here in the sense that I think one thing people really miss out on, like, yes, Florida State had a really bad year. They went 2-10, right? Like super bad.
Talented.
Basically nightmare scenario for any college football season. Does that mean, I think talent-wise, like as a betting guy, like I don't think they're a 2-10 team. I think they're a 5-7, 6-6, 7-5 team that just really got unlucky and wasn't really super focused, especially when stuff got really downhill real quick. They lost to Georgia Tech week 1 in a nail biter. Who's, by the way, Georgia Tech, if you watch them play Georgia this past year, really good team. And Florida State was hanging with them week 1. Right. Obviously that was neutral and, a lot of things played out since then, but like the gap with this portal thing now, it's not like it was 3 years ago where it's like you have these elite schools and there's only like 3 of them and they're just beating the shit out of everyone. Everyone's beating up, like everyone's like pretty good. It's kind of what I'm taking away from this. So like, yes, I agree. On a given day, I think Florida could have beaten Vanderbilt or Mississippi State or hell, even Oklahoma. And by that sense, probably could have been Bama on a given day last year. So it's, I totally agree. I think people miss out on the sense of the amount of parity that happens on a football field on a given day. Like, yes, they're good and they're very talented, so they make it look easy, but it's not. There's a lot of things that need to go right on a given play, let alone throughout a given game. to execute and get a win. So I think Guy Herring actually makes a really good point there.
I'll hear it. Interesting.
Like I do hate the term like would beat. I hate that phrase because it's like, yes,
I don't hate it.
yes, UCLA would beat UCLA would beat Georgia on a given day. Yeah, Georgia would beat UC. Like, yeah, on a that's why we play the games. Like, like yes, yes, those things could happen. This is all hypotheticals. Like, I can't stand the hypotheticals, but like, yeah, people need to understand like football. Like, these things can just happen weird and right. Like, Bama's really good team. They did go 9-3, so they didn't deserve to be in the playoff. Like that's the bottom line. Like, yes, I would probably, if I had to put them in terms of who I would bet on, if I had to rank the teams I would bet on, I'd probably have Bama in my top 6 last year. Doesn't mean I think they should be in the playoff. They went 9-3. They lost games they shouldn't have. That's just how it goes. Like, this is sports, guys. This isn't game. I think gambling's gotten way too into people's heads.
100%. 100%.
What sports is, rather than, it's not all about spreads, guys. It's not. The spreads are there for fun. It's not.
That's a phenomenal point.
The spreads are there for fun. They're not there to determine the outcomes of seasons. That's not why they're there. Yeah, I'm done with that spiel. All right, next.
John says, when was the last time Sig had a QB that wasn't in the running for Conference Player of the Year? I actually think technically it was Rourke, funny enough. I'm not sure if he was in the running for Conference Player of the Year or not. I'd have to go look.
He was definitely in the running. But I mean, that was probably the first year his quarterback didn't win the Conference Player.
That's what I mean. Like, it's
3 years.
And he was 9th in Heisman.
Yeah, and he was 9th in Heisman. Yeah, so 9th in Heisman. I think he was at least in the running for Conference Player.
I don't know if he all Big Ten though. I don't know if he was all Big Ten.
Probably the last time he didn't have a quarterback that was in the running for Conference Player of the Year, it was probably pre James Madison. So what, Elon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the answer to that one. I think that was honestly what are those questions that people ask that you're actually not supposed to respond?
Rhetorical.
I think John was asking a rhetorical question there, by the way. For IU to have a shot at the title, is anything more important than the O-line? Give Mendoza time and let him cook, right? Are they a potential defensive stalwart, an offensive juggernaut, or both? Given what we're seeing on the O-line with the amount of playable depth, we're at 8. They were about at 6 last year. It might be like 8 or 9, honestly. Live free to Johnny in the back end. Those are really talented backups to have, and I think are ready to play as redshirt freshmen, which is really exciting. But they don't have to. I mean, it's not like they're in a position where it's like, oh, we have to play these guys because they don't have anyone else. There's a competition being played out, and these young guys might beat out a Khalil Benson or something like that, and that's really exciting to see. And as long as Bosad's been there, the O-line has taken a huge jump year in and year out. And, I mean, if you watch that national title game with Ohio State and Notre Dame, I think biggest thing for me that showed out was the O-line play. I think you remember that first drive by Notre Dame that drove down the field, just absolutely pounded Ohio State all the way down the field and scored on like a 15-play drive with very strong O-line play. And I think that's something that Indiana can get to this year. Can they bring it on the defensive side? I think that remains to be seen. Obviously Wheeler and Ratcliffe and Tucker, they're coming from, they're not Power 5 guys. They, as a recruit, like maybe as a collective, they can be elite, but that Notre Dame game, seeing it live just really sticks into my mind, and just like the speed and size that come with that. I think Indiana definitely got closer, and they're a lot better than they were last year. So I guess to answer your question, the O-line is the trenches are always going to be the most important thing besides quarterback play. Honestly, it's the most important thing. Quarterback play takes you over the hump. Let them cook. I think they were a defensive stalwart last year and an offensive juggernaut last year. I think they're better on both sides of the ball. I think it remains the same.
I actually had a different answer for SoCal Hot Sauce's question. I do actually think there's something more important than the offensive line. I actually think it's the ability of the receiving room to get open against press coverage. And that was, the thing that we haven't spent a ton of time talking about specifically about that Notre Dame game, and it was a problem in the trenches for Indiana. But they also had a lot of difficulty moving the ball through the air. Now, some of that was Rourke unable to like throw the ball accurately. You have the cold. He's got 2 potentially season-ending injuries he's playing through anyway.
Also, had a
But
thumb also was like broken
yeah,
thumb too.
that was the other. Yeah, the one of the thumb and the knee. That would be the 2. But Cooper and Surratt, for the most part, didn't do much in that game. And we're going to need those guys to be dependable in these big games, or you're just going to be able to send the house after Mendoza again, like you were Rourke. So it's imperative that at least one of those guys got significantly better at separating against elite corners, because it's going to take that for this Indiana team to get to the areas they want to get to. And I think those 2 guys specifically, and getting EJ Williams and the speed they have in the wide receiver room with the freshmen and with Charlie Becker too, to me that's like can we get pop plays? Can we make big plays? Can we take the top off the defense so somebody can't just bully us like Notre Dame was kind of able to do for most of that game defensively? That's what I'm looking at. It's like, well, like the Nebraskas, the Purdue's, like these mid-pack teams that just aren't as detail focused and as well coached as we are. Like we're gonna like beat the dog snot out of these teams. Like I'm pumped to play Iowa. I'm jacked up to play Illinois. Like, but when push comes to shove and you got one-on-one coverage, can you win? That's what I'm looking at.
I
and
agree.
I think we're going to be able to win.
And I think a really good sign from that is that, remember, first spring practice, Omar Cooper beat Pons Deep. And, we were covering this team last year. Not a single receiver beat Pons Deep all of practices last year. Up until, all through, fall camp. I think that was, the big buzz going around is that no one can beat Pons Deep. And first practice comes spring, Cooper working on the speed, burns him. Burns him by, 10 yards, too, if you watch the clip. So, that's exciting to see, and hopefully that can translate to actual gameplay.
Yeah, I'm excited. I say that to say that I'm confident in the ability of those guys that I don't think I just sat on my couch and was the only person who noticed they probably need to work on these areas of their game. Like you look at what Omar Cooper specifically talked about doing, what guys like Elijah Surratt talked about improving on in the offseason. It's they're attacking those areas of the game. And those guys are dedicated football players. So I know they're putting in the work. And that's what makes me confident to even that's what I'm looking at. And I'm excited to go watch those guys perform this year. Philip says O-line is built with continuity. Illinois returns 5 O-line starters. Illinois gets O-line. We'll agree to disagree.
Agreed. I called it a toss-up mostly on the sense that, yes, Illinois brings back a very strong O-line. Indiana did have to replace some holes, but they brought 3 starters back on a top 10 O-line from last year. Bring in, they have the 2 freshmen that are now redshirt freshmen that are now going to be playable, giving them very solid depth, as well as bringing in Sen Mikowski, brought in Benson. They also brought in Coogan. So all of a sudden that's 8 really good O-linemen that they can work with and compete against each other and formulate a really good unit moving forward. So yes, a lot of people probably will give the edge to Illinois. I think people are sleeping on this Indiana O-line big time. Big time. If anyone, I think that's probably, we talked about how people are sleeping on Coop. No one's talking about this Indiana O-line. This might be the O-line that takes us over the edge. It could be. It could very well be. I might be sleeping on them. Is kind of how I'm seeing. I'm trying to be a little realistic with it, from year 1 to year 2. Obviously, I talk about the year 2 jump all the time, but these things do take time, but maybe this could be the O-line that finally actually breaks us through and gets us even more ahead of schedule than we already are. So, yeah, agree to disagree.
John says Coogan is bringing 4 quarters of FU football to the O-line. 100% agree.
Love it. And then Philip said, should conferences require schools to spend a minimum amount of revenue shared in football and basketball? Yes. However, it gets complicated with schools like Northwestern, Vanderbilt, Stanford. Schools like that will have trouble doing that. But yeah, I agree with that sentiment. I think the minimum should be kind of, realistic for your grant. If you're going to keep, teams in like Northwestern's a Big Ten school. To have the Big Ten without Northwestern would be really tough, I think. Like as much of a because like when they're good, it's awesome, but like usually they are kind of just like you stop over them. But like when they're good and they make the Big Ten title game, it's kind of electric. Like I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of sick. And then John asks, is Phil Steele the new Hoyle? I don't know who Hoyle is, so I'm gonna say yes. But, Phil Steele
I hope
has
you didn't mean Doyle.
Phil Steele has been the most accurate magazine over the last 30 years now.
We can't see that. So
yeah, I know, but you know, I tried my best. So yeah, he's the Phil Steele is the old Phil Steele. He's that guy. He's the GOAT. I highly recommend buying a book. And then Jay Wizzle's just being an idiot. Hey, Jay Wizzle.
Mississippi State, more like Mississippi bad. Boom,
Boom.
roasted. That's from that's what Jay was.
Got him. Yeah, Sig is handsome these days. Obvious boy crush. Totally agree. CFP repeat, all about it. They need someone better than Benson. I agree. And that's why they have a Johnny, Austin Liebfried, and who am I missing? Drew Evans might be able to be back by fall camp. So that all of a sudden opens the door for who would be the tackles in that sense?
Liebfried.
In theory, they could have. Well, because that, like, Jay Wizzle, talk to me. Do you think Benson's playing tackle or guard? If you're still on.
Abel says in Pond's defense, Cooper knows everything about Ponds. He knows absolute vulnerability, et cetera, et cetera. I also think actually in that Ponds clip specifically, and Brad and I have talked about this, that may have had more to do with underestimating Mendoza's ability to throw on the run than it is about getting beat in coverage.
Okay, so he thinks he's playing guard. So in theory though, if Drew Evans is back, they can go Coogan, Drew Evans, and Bray Lynch that were the guards last year, and then just go Mikowski Smith at the edge. So then all of a sudden you have Benson, who's a swing guy, and then you still have Ajani and Leifried. And Ajani was going with the ones in spring, so like he's almost ready, if not cooked already, like ready to go, fresh out of the oven, ready to go. Slot him in there. Yeah.
Depth for days. That's
Jay Wizzle, the scouting extraordinaire himself.
And then, Brad, I wanted to get your opinion on this. I'd like to get the opinion of the chat, honestly, as well. But there was we can call it a scandal. We'll call it whatever we want. There was an On3, the person who ran On3's like NIL University and like was like their director of athlete development network or whatever he was doing. Yeah, I am bringing this up. He was a paid consultant for Tennessee at the same time as he was hired by On3. On3 came out and said we had no knowledge of any of this, and like that there was, but like clear, like regardless of if they knew or not, at any time that you sat there and you're like, I can't believe how much of an SEC slant this website takes. And you're like, almost think you're crazy for thinking there's some massive conspiracy where like they're actually working for the SEC schools. And it's like, actually, lo and behold, no, they are. Like the people pretty like the president of NIL University was working for Tennessee and in position to promote Tennessee while also having this position with On3. And it's I can't say I'm surprised. I'm disappointed. It's sickening. He's probably not the only one. And part of me hopes that like the Big Ten has people in there, but like, you know, it's like it's like you think you think you're crazy for screaming this is an inside job, and then it's like it turns out that there are people on the inside like not playing by the rules. So is what it is. But what were your thoughts on that, Brad? Because I know I was kind of the only one who really had an opinion about it.
So Jay Wizzle had one of my sentiments too. Tennessee and recruiting scandals. It goes together like peanut butter and jelly. Shout out the cash in the McDonald's bags at the official visits. That was awesome.
Shout out my half-eaten peanut butter and jelly.
Oh, there we go. That's electric. And yeah, no, that was awesome. Just seeing Tennessee. I see that all around. Like people talk about how Oregon pays On3 for good publicity, which makes sense. You know, Oregon's got fuck you money. They're totally doing that. I mean, it just, it doesn't surprise me. I just bring back the old days when it was just scout.com and rivals. And then maybe, I think the early days of 24/7 was coming around, and, it was so wholesome back then. They didn't have any agendas. They were just covering recruits, and people were eating it up and buying subscriptions. That's all it was. And it was awesome. It was a great time. And now, money hungry individuals kind of mess it all up, and people with agendas. And when things get too big, it gets a little more corrupt. That's just how things go in life. So, yeah, that's just how
part of me is like, if you're not cheating, you're not trying type of deal. Like if you're not just trying to take over different parts of the influence game, then like you're not essentially doing everything possible to win, but it is cheating at the end of the day. It's like,
yeah, I make jokes about how I hope we're cheating, but I think we can win without cheating is the thing. From what I've seen that was mostly a joke that kind of started when we started this podcast and Indiana was bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a joke that just kind of started back in the Six Inside days. I hope that we can win. Obviously, like if you're not cheating, you're trying. I totally believe with that. However, I do believe that Indiana can win without cheating. I believe in that coaching staff to that level that they can develop, execute, instill culture to the point where they can win a championship in the next 5 years.
I'm with you. I full blown agree. And that's why we'll be covering it every week. If you're watching on Twitter or you're watching on Facebook, hop on over to YouTube. You can hop in the comments. We're interacting with the chat the entire time the show's going on. Also, please like, comment, share, subscribe to Indiana at the Voice of College Football on YouTube. We're chasing 500 subscribers before the season starts. I think we'll be able to get there, with plenty of time to spare, but we're close. So those are a couple goals we got. But Brad, we got some Indiana basketball news as well. We talked about 7-3 center Luigi Ciugo visiting campus this week from last week. He was on campus today. So official visits are already coming in for the class of 2026 for basketball. We got a commitment in the class of 2025, actually. So for this incoming class, I believe it was Alexis Ristich.
Alexa Ristich. 6'4" guard. I haven't watched any film on him, so I can't say anything.
He's a big boy. 6'4", 200.
I just like the idea of bringing in a 20-year-old freshman who's played professional European ball, bring him into the program. Iron sharpens iron. Like, very common theme. Like, these roles are not defined really besides Bailey, DeFreeze, and Dayton Connerway, and then probably Lamar Wilkerson at the 2. Everything else is really up in the air. I'm hearing Josiah Miles is shooting the ball really well. However, watch out for Nick Dorn to get that, 5th starter spot. I think it's between Dorn and Josiah Miles, so we'll see what happens. Then obviously, finally, the size that we've been begging for with Luigi, big fella, 7'3".
Well, he didn't commit. He took an official visit.
Yeah.
He was on
exactly.
Campus.
And I imagine he will likely commit soon. I'm gonna just throw that out there. Can I say that? Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, why not? We don't have any inside information. Okay. Like we're not. You're just shooting from the hip.
I don't want to break. I don't want to break any rules here. Well, as much
we don't have any rules. Like it's. Yeah. I would say this: if you were told by if you had a source, and it was some sort of inclination of, but no, you're just making a prediction. Shoot from the hip.
Using just time. It's June. You should probably commit once he visits, and that's probably what he should do, just personally. Yeah. John says if we need to cheat, Sig learned from Saban. So yeah, honestly, yeah, hell yeah. And then why do you think Benson left Colorado to come back to Bloomington? To be honest, I don't know.
I think he just compared Ristich to Randy Whitman. You went back to the Benson question.
Well, I don't know who that is. Isn't that the guy that sings I Love LA? No, it's Randy Newman.
No, Randy Whitman was a coach for somebody for a while
Randy
for the last.
Whitman.
That's too funny, John.
John's this big goofball, I don't know who Randy Whitman is. I can't even acknowledge.
Was he the coach of the Jazz? He was the coach of somebody.
Oh no. I mean, he probably watched him play.
He played in the league.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it's
The
is that a
Wizards.
compliment?
The
81
Wizards.
champ team. There we go. Yeah, total compliment. Yeah, Randy Whitman back in the day, 81 champ. That had to be Celtics, right? 81.
No, NCAA champ.
Um, coach for the Cavs. Very nice. Why did Benson leave Colorado? I don't know. Probably wanted to win or something. Something had to do with that. Anyways.
Yeah, my guess is Indiana provided a better opportunity.
So we got and more guards for days, and got a 7-3 guy on the way. Give us a Randy Newman. Give me a Randy. I love LA every time. SoCal hot sauce. Duh, I love LA. We love it. Yeah, go Dodgers.
Super sidebar.
Super duper sidebar.
Super sidebar. JJ Spawn, who won the US Open this week, was talking about like playing in a tournament, like a pro-am with Mookie Betts, and he called Mookie Betts his all-time favorite Dodger, and it just broke my heart.
Shout out JJ Spawn. He recently became my favorite golfer over the weekend. You know, winning the US Open on a 60 foot putt.
64.
Game winner. Probably didn't even need to make it really, but just like cleared all doubts type putt. And Dodger fan, LA kid, gotta love it. He's my new favorite. Him and Morikawa, the two LA guys on tour, are my two favorites.
Dude, I'm so deep in golf TikTok right now. I could go for hours about this, so we have to change this. We have to change the topic. But Indiana, I don't know if this was on the schedule already or if this just got announced kind of in the last couple of weeks or last week, but Inside the Hall, I saw a tweet this out. Indiana's going to play Louisville at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in obviously in Indianapolis on December 6th at 2 p.m. That is 7 days before they play Kentucky. And I think I'm like looking at this. I looked at it like 2 or 3 times before I wrote it down. Now I'm looking at it again. It just almost doesn't seem right, but they have a Louisville non-con a week before they play Kentucky.
Yeah. Okay. So let's remember Six Inside when we talked about basketball for the first time, because I had to spew about that performance against Louisville in the Bahamas. Remember that? Yes. Remember that game?
Yes, I do.
How bad they were? I don't think we should judge this team until that Louisville game happens. And then we can kind of see the differences in terms of competing, right? Because I think a big issue with that game was just the lack of fight, the lack of compete, the lack of care, the lack of a lot of things that are important in basketball. And yeah, I think getting that gauge before we go to Kentucky is huge. And yeah, looking forward to that. Well, we should be playing Louisville and Kentucky and Notre Dame and Butler every year, honestly.
I agree. And John, I promise you, I'm doing a Randy Whitman deep dive this week. I feel like the fact that he was on the 81 Indiana championship team and like we didn't know that, not great. So I'll own it. I'll own that.
I'll live. I want to win a championship this century.
No, I'm with you, but just like honor your history. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, no, I know. As a historian, I can respect that. So I'll crunch some Randy Whitman tape later.
That's what I got for this week, Brad. Do you got any closing thoughts before I rip my hair out about Rafael Devers, as I promised John I would do at the beginning of the show?
Jay Wizzle is not a fan of Khalil Benson. So it's almost at a point where it's like, man, I kind of want Drew Evans to be back or Ajani to kind of step forward, potentially beat out Benson. But the thing is, you still, as maybe bad as Benson was and he got benched last year, like maybe this is the first time we're actually able to talk like critically of a player maybe on the Indiana roster. It's kind of fun. As bad as he was, at the end of the day, he's still a 5th-year O-lineman, grown man. So if Ajani's able to beat him out as a 19, 20-year-old, I mean, that speaks volumes to where Ajani's at. So definitely something to look into as we go into fall.
With Benson, he was playing out of position. He was in Colorado was like changing the offensive line like once a quarter.
Yeah, I don't know how good the coaching is over there either. Because I think Benson obviously came back to IU specifically because I think he likes Bostad. Okay,
I would
I think
imagine
he
that had
experienced
a lot to
Bostad,
do with it.
got to Colorado and was like, "What the hell is this?" And then went back, and now he's back with Bob. I think that's going to be huge for him in his development, and hopefully he can step up and get a starting role because he definitely has that. Like we remember Kilo Benson, he started as a true freshman at Indiana in the
No, I'm
Tom
a
Allen era. The
believer.
kid's got talent at the wazoo, and
He's big, he's
he's
athletic,
got NFL
got a good
potential.
family.
It's just like he
Like,
just had a really bad year last year, and it's just about him getting back up. It's the Bob Bostad boot camp. He's
yep.
going to Bob Bostad boot camp. Unfortunately, he was hurt all spring, which kind of delays some things. So, kind of gives Ajani a shot to take that spot, or maybe Drew Evans is healthy again, and we can just put Lynch and Evans back there. And they were so solid last year. I think they really exceeded expectations. They were like probably the biggest guys that like stepped up and were probably the most unheralded reasons why Indiana had the season they had last year was the emergence of Drew Evans and Bray Lynch and the type of seasons that they had. Huge if we can get, be interesting to see. I think what's going to happen with the guards are going to be just like last year, going to be one of the biggest talking points going in the fall.
I agree. And I completely agree with your point that it was funny that like Evans and Lynch in particular, we talked about the offensive line. I believe Lynch was a guy that like I identified as a roster gem that could help in 2025 and beyond. I didn't take into account that how good he could be right away. And then you look at how quickly Bostad was able to develop. Evans, I believe, was a transfer, if I'm not mistaken, came in from Wisconsin.
He was a Wisconsin transfer, but he was on that Tom Allen team.
So he was in the room for a year.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the Bostad's ability to mold those guys into Big Ten, like high level Big Ten starters. Like that's why you look at a kid like CJ Sifries or Skiffries and it's like if you have a question mark about a big offensive lineman who just needs a little bit of technique refinement and like learn the position, it's like cool, he's going to the perfect place.
Yeah.
All right, I got like 1, 2, maybe 3 minutes on Rafael Devers. John said, Alec, have you kissed and made up with your Red Sox front office? Come over to the Yankee bandwagon. We have room for you. I didn't even read that part. No, I will not be jumping to any Yankee bandwagon. It's funny. I'm a New Jersey kid born and raised in New Jersey, spent 22 years there, but my grandfather's from Boston. So that's my connection with the Red Sox is before I was even born, I was a Red Sox fan. And so like, I got my connection with the Red Sox is like the longest running connection of anything I've ever had in my entire life. So it's like I have a very unhealthily like mental relationship with the team and with baseball and all that stuff. And so when you look at this Rafael Devers situation in a vacuum, it's horrible. When you look at the Rafael Devers situation in the lens of what's happened in the last 5 years to Red Sox fans, it's like how many more times am I going to lose my franchise superstar and just people I grew up watching? It's like Mookie Betts, arguably the greatest baseball season I've ever watched, traded in 2020 because he's doesn't want to be there anymore. Can't see eye to eye with the front office. Xander Bogaerts, arguably should have had a C on his chest. Face of the Boston Red Sox, doesn't see eye to eye with ownership or the team, and it's just you come to Rafael Devers, the team to his face tells him he's going to be the third baseman all off season. They sign Bregman, shows up at spring training. Bregman's playing third base. They tell him, put his glove away. We don't want you to play the field. Then injuries happen. They come to him. They're like, play first base. He says no. They call the relationship irreparable and they fucking trade him for 50 cents on the dollar. It's unfortunate that it got to the point it had to. And it's like the most frustrating part is that this was all self-created. And it's just like if you just had adults in the room, we wouldn't have gotten here. It just could have been a couple conversations and a problem solved, and Rafael Devers would still be on my favorite baseball team. But because people couldn't be adults, the next 8.5 years of like baseball for me has been completely altered, and it sucks. And like the Red Sox might end up being all right. Like they have roster flexibility and they have money to spend and they have a pitching lab, but it's like, man, how many times can I get my heart ripped out of my chest and stepped on as a fan? So it's like they play in like a half hour. Like I'm gonna watch the game, you know. Like I am sick in that way. But it's like I was like I crashed out on Twitter. I apologize for anybody who saw any of those tweets. It's funny. There's a Shane Gillis joke about like his uncles tweeting into the void and like tweeting to nobody, and that's how I felt about all my Red Sox takes. Just like tweeting to nobody, like just sending them out there, just pure frustration. Like Brad called me and he was like trying to like joke or whatever, and I just hung up on him. And I don't think I think I just sat in a dark room and watched like Rafi Devers off Aroldis Chapman highlights for 2 hours. Like it was a surreal feeling, and like in terms of sports, it's just like a shotgun blast to the chest. Like it's gonna take a while to recover from this one, and it hurts. And I hug your Red Sox fan friends, because it's like, what do you even do at this point? Because it's like, do you get attached to the team, or do you start falling in love with players again, or it's like, how do you even know they're gonna be there and next year, let alone in that there's been four position players and one pitcher to ever complete a 4-year or longer contract with the Boston Red Sox. That's it. So it's yeah. I got
That's a crazy stat. Can you say that again? All
three
time?
position. I think so, yeah.
Oh my god. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's not like
and
that's
one
not
of those is David Ortiz, right? I imagine.
But like that can't be true, because so maybe it's like in the last decade or something, because like Veritek was there for a while, although like he was on a different team too. Like Ortiz was there for 13 years. Like like Ortiz was one off the top of my head. JD Martinez was one. Dice K was one. And I don't even remember who else, but it's like I literally have a dog named Mookie, and this one hurts more.
That's crazy. Why did it have to be the Giants? You know,
I got one of my child.
My arch rival got a top 10 hitter.
Yeah, you did lose. Yeah, we did. This is John. To be honest, this move, the Rafael Devers trade, is the most the Boston Red Sox have done for the New York Yankees since the Babe Ruth trade.
Yeah. Because it helps.
That's why. That is why, when it comes to Curt Cignetti and the Indiana Hoosiers, I am so incredibly grateful that he chose our university and that him and his staff are leading this charge. You have no idea what this week of recruiting did for me. Man, it was much needed, to say the least. Shout out to all the guys, and I'm jacked up for this 2025 Indiana Hoosiers team, and I'm not sure what I would do without them. That's what I got for this week, Brad.
Hey, John, just remember, Judge dropped the ball. Just remember. Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New York.
No, they play That's Life.
2024 World Champs.
They play That's Life when they lose now, Brad. It's Sinatra's a beautiful artist.
Oh, but when the Dodgers win, we play start spreading the news. We start playing that.
Sun got a new size. That's good stuff. Appreciate everyone for hanging out with us. If you're watching on Twitter, watching on Facebook, hop on over to YouTube, like, comment, share, subscribe. Like I said, we're chasing 500 subscribers before the season starts, so we're putting pedal to the metal. We're starting now. We're setting a goal, chasing after it. You can follow the show on Twitter at IndianaVOCFB. Again, follow us on YouTube. You can follow me at Alec Keyser. Follow Brad at Bradley_Loomis8. You can follow the Sigs Inside account at Sigs Inside Pod. Yeah, it's things are happening. We're slowly creeping closer. I think Respectable Adam had the tweet. It was like 76 days until Indiana football or something like that.
We're this close. Wait, we can't even see it.
The Phil Steele book is out. It's here. Indiana basketball is recruiting and heating up, and we didn't even talk about what the impact of wrist stitch.
We don't know, to be honest. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to go one way or the other about Goody or Leal or both of them. So we'll leave that conversation.
It seems like
for
they're
another
out.
day.
If they're bringing it, they just took a commitment. They have one spot left, and they're bringing on a 7-3 guy to fill in that last spot. It looks like Leal and Goody.
20.
That's the impact. That Leal and Goody. It looks like they're out.
Suigo is a 26.
Oh,
could
okay.
he reclass?
Maybe they
Yes,
still bring in Goody. Yeah.
But yeah, appreciate everybody in the chat asking questions, staying engaged, all that good stuff, and we'll be back next week, 8 p.m. talking Indiana Hoosiers ball.
Chicago time, 5 p.m. LA time. And shout out our Mountain West listeners.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm glad you said that.
6 p.m. Mountain West time. Didn't realize we had Mountain West listeners. Shout out. Hope you're listening on this episode too. But yeah, I gotta check it. I gotta check out this UCLA Arkansas College World Series game. So I gotta jump.
Appreciate you guys for watching. We'll catch you next week.
See ya.